And we're back to talk more about Waiting for Weston with the author, Marilu Schmier. Marilu, in the earlier segment, we talked about ultimately where you started looking for some help with Huna healers.
Right.
Some of the other people that you talked about in your book who helped were psychics, healers, and channelers. And obviously, this was something that was out of your comfort zone for your belief system as a Catholic. How did you sort of reconcile those two aspects of your life?
Well, I think for the most part, to back up a little bit, when a parent is given a diagnosis for your child, be it that they have an incurable disease or that, you know, what the doctors don't know how to help your child, you really kind of go back to what's going to help me. And you kind of throw out, at least I did, I threw out maybe my old belief system and opened myself up to God and opened myself up to looking at any possibility for him. And not only did we go to Huna healers and to, you know, channelers and psychics, we actually traveled to Mexico as well for assistance for Weston, and that was a big step. I mean, we really didn't see ourselves traveling outside the country to help our son. But again, when you're given that type of diagnosis, and it certainly wasn't you know, something that was going to kill him, but it certainly was something that in a way wasn't what we had thought for him. So you really start opening yourself up. And I told you in the last segment that I made sure to say the prayer, you know, to the Holy Spirit to help me help my son, and that's when trust came in. And when I am praying that, and you know, someone like a healer comes forward or somebody else comes forward, I really had to kind of check myself and say, you know, is this my wishful thinking? Is this truly what I need to do? And that's kind of how it started. But it really started with a very strong faith foundation, and not so much in Catholicism per se, but in the fact that there is a higher being, and there's something that I need to trust, and I'm going to do that. And that's kind of, you know, how I looked at it.
And so
it led me to crazy places.
So you're at these different places,
right?
And their diagnosis of Weston was that
he was normal.
He was a spiritual master.
Yes. Well,
I mean, how did you take that when they said, "Well, he's a spiritual master"?
Well, it didn't happen right away. Basically, they saw him as being normal, and I thought, he's so far from that. It's been what was my thinking at the time. But they really had interesting reasons for why he was the way he was. So the fact that he didn't want to wear shoes, for example, they saw the reason was because he needed to feel grounded to the earth, and it wasn't because he had a sensory issue, and it wasn't because the grass felt scratchy on his feet, which it didn't. I mean, I knew that, even though the therapist told me, well, that's why he has a sensory problem. Well, really, because he can walk on sand, he can walk on grass, but it never really made sense to me. Though of course we did that route, and we did, you know, things that they suggested for us to do for that issue. But these other people, no, this is the reason why he won't wear shoes, and it's because of him not being grounded, or this is the reason why he has, you know, he seems to be seeing things that no one else is seeing. Yeah, because he can see things that no one else is seeing. So I kind of it happened gradually, and honestly, in the beginning, I really wasn't that interested. You know, I wanted them to fix him. I was still very much in that fix him mode, make him speak, make him be able to go to school, make him be able to sit in a chair for longer than 5 minutes. And that's kind of interesting. Oh, okay, well, that's an interesting way. I guess I'll tell Dawn. But that really wasn't going to help me initially. And I was still, again, waiting for Weston to be this little boy. And but they had some interesting ideas of why he was doing things, and it kept me coming because I wanted to help him, and I trusted that this is where I was supposed to be.
Now, you mentioned Don, who is your husband and Weston's father. You know, how did your entire family sort of, you know, manage this idea? I mean, first of all, you bring home a baby that is, you know, has a lot of challenges, so that alone is going to change the family dynamic. But then you move into seeing psychics and Huna healers. I mean, how did your family take this? I mean, what was that like?
Well, I can talk about Dawn first, and we'll go from there. You know, Dawn and I have been married for a long time, and before we had, you know, we were married for a while before we had kids. So we had we had a strong marriage, and we still do. And you know, Don is a police officer, and so honestly, you know, a lot of it, you know, he wasn't an absent father by any means, but a lot of, you know, he trusted me, and that was all that mattered. And so, you know, of course, we wanted it to be easy. I would take Weston to therapy every day, and you know, those things were fine, and it seemed to be the route that most people took. And when I suggested to him, for example, the first time, well, let's go to these Huna healers, I didn't tell him too much, honestly. Right. So, you know, and again, he trusted me. Okay. He loved me. He loved our family. He even though maybe he wasn't as forthcoming as I was as far as stepping out and looking for these people, you know, he was. I always knew he was there. I always knew that I could trust in him, and that he would support us. And so, so we went together. And you know, honestly, he has a good sense of humor. I have a good sense of humor, and we just try to make it as positive as possible. Though we really didn't know all the time what we were getting ourselves into. You know, that's kind of how. That's how it progressed with us. And then with my extended family, my parents and my sisters and so on, you know, again, we come from a family of you know, of Catholicism, and so we believed in things maybe that really weren't something that you can visually see all the time. And again, I mentioned about my father. My father was very instrumental in my growing up as far as trusting God and looking at a bigger picture outside of what maybe our Catholic faith told us, but you know, more of a spiritual side, though he may not have called it that. But and now as an adult, I see that that's really what he was more about than anything else. And that's kind of, and so it really wasn't that far of a jump for me to be able to look at these Huna healers and look at these psychics and whatnot, and be comfortable with the fact that even though it's outside of maybe what I was taught in, you know, Catholic school, it certainly was something that was within spirituality, and really that is what I've come to accept is what God is not a religion, but of a spirituality. So,
thank you, Marilu. We'll be back with more from Marilu Schmier, talking about her book, Waiting for Weston, which is available the spring of 2012 on Amazon.com or on the website, WestonSchmier.com.